Wasabi guys, Void here, come back at you all with another video. This time I want to do a little bit of speculation here, and especially now that we've known the cards in Iconic Masters now for a while, so I think it's appropriate now to just speculate on what we could be getting in Masters 25. If you don't know, that is going to be releasing next March in 2018. And from the impressions that we have so far, what people think about Iconic Masters, it's kind of a letdown. I mean, there's some good cards, some iconic cards, but for the most part you see a lot of newer cards, more of the modern era type of cards, like the Praetors from New Phyrexia, or even the Kamigawa Dragons. I mean, they're not terrible, but when it comes to just being iconic, you typically think of much older cards. And for Masters 25, I am going to be looking around at Portal, Portal 3 Kingdoms, stuff like that. We can even go back and look all the way to Alpha, a lot of the original cards from there, Legends, stuff like that. There's a lot of old cards that are not on the reserve list, and that's sort of the problem with making a set like Iconic Masters or Masters 25. You want them to be old cards that needed reprints, but unfortunately a lot of the old cards that need reprints, you can't reprint, so you run into a lot of problems there. The only other problem is that a lot of the cards that aren't on the reserve list that desperately need reprints are worth hundreds of dollars, so you want to make it to where this Masters set is going to be around the same price point as your Modern Masters, your Eternal Masters, sets that you've done in the past that haven't really gone too far above the EV that we expect. You want it to be around $200. You don't want it to be $300, $400, because then people aren't going to buy it. It's too expensive. So let's start it off here. I have 20 cards here that I think should be reprinted, and these are all pretty well deserved. I think for the most part these cards see play in Commander, but they also see play in Vintage and Legacy. Not as many of these cards are going to be Modern playable, which is kind of appropriate when we're talking about the 25th anniversary. You want to see some older cards. First one we have here is Rishadan Port, one of the cards that I think a lot of people are asking for. Sees a lot of play in Legacy. It's a pretty good card. Effectively what you do is you just keep your opponents tapped down. You can keep them tapped out of one land, and that could be their mana producing land that they need a specific color of. It's just a very effective card. What it's capable of doing, yeah, it is going to cost you some mana to get it going, but earlier on in the game, just do it at their upkeep. It's a pretty effective way of slowing down your opponents. Next we have the Filter Lands, specifically the ones from Eventide and Shadowmoor, not the Graven Cairns, which just got a reprint. All of these are desperately needed. They do see some play in Modern. I don't think they deserve to be at the price point that they typically are. They're around like $20, which is crazy because a lot of the fetch lands are around $20 and they see way more play. These should be around $5 each. A lot of people have been asking for these to get reprinted for a while now. If they're going to reprint a land cycle in this set, this is probably one to do. And then we have Ancient Tomb. This got a reprint as a Zendikar Expedition, which unfortunately doesn't really do much for the actual value of the card. Still around $25, I believe. So it is pretty expensive, but it sees a ton of play in Vintage, sees a ton of play in Commander. Pretty awesome card. Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth. Might as well include the next card, which is Cabal Coffers. They pretty much do wonderful things together. Get you a ton of black mana. Urborg's just a fantastic land. Cabal Coffers is essentially the black Gaia's Cradle. I think that Rishadan Port, as far as land reprints goes, is probably at the top of the list here. But still, I mean, these wouldn't be terrible inclusions. And then we have Phyrexian Tower. This is one of those weird cards that hasn't got a reprint for a while. It's not on the reserve list. Used to think it was, but all it really does is sacrifices a creature, gets you 2 black mana. It's pretty solid. I could definitely see this in a ton of Commander decks. For utility, Marin of Clan Neltoth, any graveyard based deck where you want to get sack triggers or just get creatures in your graveyard, also get mana, pretty good. Now we move on to some artifacts that could get reprinted. All of these I think deserve it. We're talking about Lotus Petal, got a reprint as one of the Kaladesh Inventions, not super expensive. You could probably print this as an uncommon in the set, and I definitely think that would work. Now we have Mana Vault, again not super expensive, but we've had Mana Crypt get reprinted in Eternal Masters. This is on a very similar level, sees a ton of play in Vintage, sees some play in Commander as well. A little bit more affordable though than Mana Crypt, so I think it'd be an easier inclusion. Not necessarily considered a money card in the set, but definitely something worth considering. You have Crucible of Worlds. Could be a definite money card in the set, especially if you keep this artwork. It's fantastic as is. Another Kaladesh Inventions, but unfortunately, as with the other masterpieces, they don't really seem to affect the actual value because they're also rare chase cards themselves, not going to oversaturate the market. Sees a ton of play throughout multiple different formats. It's just way too expensive. I mean, it deserves yet another reprint. Then we have Phyrexian Altar. Not as good at comboing as Ashnod's Altar, but still just absolutely amazing in Commander. Having something that can sacrifice creatures. It's also a mana source. Just fantastic, giving you colored mana. It was only printed one time in Invasion, which is just ridiculous. It's only really expensive because just people have a tough time finding it, so might as well just reprint it. It's a wonderful card, pretty good in a lot of decks in Commander. And we have Ensnaring Bridge. If you love those Legacy Prison decks, this is just a fantastic card. You can just lock your opponents out, keep them from attacking you. Just a lovely card, especially considering cards like Moat are on the reserve list. Hey, why not? And then the final artifact to reprint, and this one is kind of obvious. I don't know why they haven't done it yet, but Blightsteel Colossus. If they were going to reprint the Praetors in Iconic Masters, why wouldn't they also consider Blightsteel Colossus? I mean, also a pretty expensive card, sees a ton of play, one of the most intimidating creatures to have stare down at you. Now we move on to colors here. Not a lot of colored cards, but with white we have Landtax, which hasn't been reprinted in one of these sets. It's not on the reserve list. It's one of those older cards from Legends. Would be a fantastic inclusion in a set. Could reprint it as an uncommon as well. It's not super expensive, but wouldn't be one of the worst cards to have as a rare in the set either. But yeah, combine it with the scroll rack and suddenly you're just drawing 3 cards. It's pretty fantastic. And then these next 2 cards, which are both blue, are pretty much the same exact card, just different names. Temporal Manipulation, essentially a way more expensive Time Warp from Portal 2nd Age. And then the one after that is Capture of Jingzhou from Portal 3 Kingdoms, which is just way too expensive. But then again, a lot of these Portal 3 Kingdoms cards are just expensive because they're from Portal 3 Kingdoms. Probably just going to have to go with one of these if they reprint either of them. I don't really think if you reprint cards from Portal 3 Kingdoms that it's going to just absolutely force you to raise the overall MSRP of this set. Because we have had Judges promos of cards that happen to be from Portal 3 Kingdoms, but they just end up being way cheaper than the original versions because they're from Portal 3 Kingdoms. So I don't really think the danger is really there. But yeah, I mean, one or the other, I really don't care. They're both basically just Time Warp, and extra turn effects are ridiculous. And then we have yet another one. This could be a huge chase card in the set. And the next one is black. It's Imperial Seal. 1 mana, basically sorcery speed, vampiric tutor. So right off the bat, it's significantly worse than the second best tutor in the game. Vampiric Tutor is preferable to this in Commander, and Demonic Tutor, which is also on this list, but we're going to get to that in a second. It's not preferable, so you could reprint a card like this, and it would probably be about maybe a $50 card when everything's all said and done. The only reason why this one's more expensive is because it's from Portal 3 Kingdoms. It's about $500. The Judges promo is like $150. So you see that it's not so much about the card itself, but rather just the versions. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. And then we have Cruel Tutor, basically a 3-mana tutor that you have to lose life for. So again, significantly worse than the 2 most popular options in Commander, but yet still something that you would probably put in a mono black deck nevertheless. Both of these cards could definitely see reprints in the set. I don't know if both would, one or the other, likely. But this seems like something that they would rather do. I think it would be a little bit more fair, because it does cost 3 mana. And then obviously the next one is Demonic Tutor, which is the most iconic out of the 3 easily. One of the oldest cards on this entire list from original Alpha. Has been reprinted a handful of times and could definitely use another one. It is still around a $25 to $30 card. Definitely a staple in Commander. And then we have, honestly, my pick for the best chase card in the entire set. If they were to reprint it, I think it's just a lovely card. And that is Imperial Recruiter. Right now, from the Portal 3 Kingdoms, it is about a $200 card. That was right around the price of Mana Drain before it got reprinted. It has gone down a bit since then, so this is likely something that could be a chase card or the 2nd to 3rd best card in the set easily. But it's just one of those cards that, what it does, I mean, we have cards that do a very similar thing to this, and they aren't anywhere near this value. But having cards like these would be just fantastic to be reprinted. And then the last card here, it is green, the only green card on the list. Doubling Season was reprinted in Modern Masters, but still, that was a long time ago. It is way more expensive now definitely deserves yet another reprint to lower the price. Sees a ton of play in Commander. Just the fact that that busted interaction with Planeswalkers makes it more expensive. But then again, it synergizes pretty well with just about any +1/+1 counter related deck in the format. Any token related deck in the format it does pretty well with. Just a fantastic card. One of those, once you play it, you pretty much put yourself in the best position to win type of cards. So anyway, guys, those were 20 cards that I honestly feel like they could see reprints or be in consideration for reprinting for Masters 25 coming out in March. Let me know what you think about the 20 cards I put here. Let me know if you think there's any other cards. I definitely want to hear what you guys think should be reprinted. I don't know if this is going to be the last video that I make on this topic, but I would like to do some more speculations in the future. I don't know how much time I have left to do it. March is right around the corner, believe it or not. We're talking 3-4 months from now. A month or two from now, we're probably going to get some spoilers or hints as to what we're going to be getting. So keep an eye out for those as well. Anyway, you have a wonderful day. Void here signing off.